Welcome. This presentation is designed to give an overview of the rules governing the sanitation of summer camps. This includes information about the rules and how to document violations on the inspection form. The rules governing the sanitation of summer camps are listed under 15A NCAC 18A.1000. You may hear them referred to as summer camp rules or the 1000 rules, but this is the North Carolina Administrative Code nomenclature for the rule numbers. Please make sure you have a copy of these rules and inspection form 1050 to reference during this presentation. It would be very helpful for you to have a copy of the rules governing the sanitation of resident camps as well. These are listed under 15A NCAC 18A.3600. These rules are referenced in this presentation. There will be a couple of mentions from those resident camp rules throughout this presentation. A link to these rules is provided on the North Carolina Division of Environmental Health website. So let's jump in and begin with Rule 1001. Definitions, just like our other sets of rules, summer camp starts out with definitions. And a summer camp means a camp establishment that prepares or serves food for pay or provides overnight lodging accommodations for pay for groups of children or adults engaged in organized recreational or educational programs. So it does not include day camps that are required to obtain a license through the Division of Child Development. It does not include campgrounds or other facilities that only rent property or campsites for camping. It does not include resident camps, children's foster care camps, or residential therapeutic camps that are defined in Rule 3601. Primitive experience camps, as defined in Rule 3501, are not included in summer camps as well. In the definition, you see the word or. It's highlighted in red. This differentiates a summer camp from a resident camp. For a resident camp, food and overnight accommodations are provided for a period of 72 hours or more. So it's very important to understand that difference. For a summer camp, there's food prepared and served for pay, or overnight lodging accommodations for pay. But resident camps, food and overnight accommodations are provided for a period of 72 hours or more. Other definitions you will find: base camp, camp food service kitchen, and educational kitchen. So just making yourself aware of these is helpful. You will hear these terms. They will help you determine what's required in each area and how to mark the violations that you might observe in these areas when you get to the inspection form. You might have to refer back to the definitions just to familiarize yourself with the differences. Field sanitation, Rule 1002. If you refer to 15A NCAC 18A Rule 3619, so that's the resident camp rules, that will help you with the information that's on this slide. These activities and cookouts that might happen away from base camp, that's explained in 3619, they could be overnight trips, primitive camping activities, and there's no written procedure that's required, but we recommend that you discuss field sanitation activities with the camp operator to determine if they are in compliance or not. More on field sanitation from Rule 1002. This is also something that you would refer to Rule 3619 in the resident camp rules for this slide. A brief summary of the items that are listed under 3619 is here. These are things that have to be addressed for off-site activities and cookouts. Again, written procedures are not required, but the registered environmental health specialist that is doing the inspection or working with that camp needs to ensure that the items are addressed during permitting and routine inspections. So we're talking about food storage, preparation, and cooking when they go off-site, away from the base camp. The water supply and treatment, how are they making sure that the water is clean and adequate for consumption? Cleaning of utensils and equipment, hand washing for food handlers, storage of any toxic materials that they take with them out there, and then disposal of human waste. All of these should be discussed and made sure that they're in compliance when they are doing these activities away from the base camp. Rule 1003 discusses or addresses standards and approval of plans. So plans drawn to scale are supposed to be submitted for review and approval prior to construction or remodel. This would be for summer camp kitchen facilities, for lodging facilities, bathing facilities, and toilet facilities. Anything that's going to be done to those in the camp, the plans drawn to scale for construction of those should be submitted to the local health department of the county where the camp is located. Plans for the proposed construction or remodeling of a swimming pool, however, at a summer camp, public swimming pool at a summer camp, has to be submitted in accordance with those swimming pool rules, which are the 2500 rules, and 2509 would address the plan submission for construction or remodeling of a public swimming pool at a summer camp. Please understand that for the plans that have to be reviewed by the local health department for actual camp facilities, the camp kitchen or the lodging, bathing, or toilet facilities, these are to be submitted and they must be addressed and responded to within 30 days. Approved, disapproved, or marked incomplete. Some kind of communication has to go back to the applicant to explain that what is going on in the review. If there is no communication in those 30 days and there's not been a response from the local health department, then those plans will stand as approved. If the health department fails to approve, disapprove, or mark them incomplete and have that communication within 30 days, the plans are deemed approved. If you have cause to disapprove or mark the plans incomplete, the local health department is to provide written comments to the submitter or the applicant, informing them of what is missing or what led them to be disapproved. So that is the responsibility of the local health department to follow up and respond when they receive those plans. Construction is not supposed to start until the plans have been approved by the local health department. And just a reminder that plans and equipment specifications for construction or remodeling of a camp food service kitchen shall be submitted in accordance with the provisions of Part A2 of the North Carolina Food Code, because we incorporated the food code into our food establishment rules, which are the 2600 rules. So 2650 stands to explain that we have to have the food service kitchen, even of a camp, the food service kitchen, those plans are to be submitted in accordance with Part A2 of the Food Code. Permits. Rule 1004. A permit is required from the health department. Advance notice of operation. So that is required at least 45 days prior to the first date of operation each calendar year for that camp. And we'll say a little bit more of that in another slide. But it is true and in the rules that the plans, that the advance notice of operation is to be submitted at least 45 days prior to that first date of operation. If the establishment does not satisfy all the requirements in compliance, a permit shall not be issued. And when a transfer of ownership occurs, the REHS or the inspector must complete an evaluation of the facility and issue a transitional permit if the establishment satisfies the requirements for that. If non-compliant items are related to construction or equipment items that do not represent a threat to the public health, a transitional permit may be issued. In that case, the transitional permit would stand for 180 days, and at the end of 180 days, it expires unless it has been suspended or revoked, and it cannot be renewed. So upon expiration of that transitional permit, the permit holder shall have corrected those non-compliant items and obtained their permanent permit, or the summer camp shall close. That slide just shows you a picture of the permit form. More on permits, so we're still in Rule 1004. Permit conditions can be imposed when necessary. that this might be the number of persons that are served by that camp. It might be the categories and types of food that can be served. It might be that there's a water supply maintenance concern. There might be an on-site septic system for sewage disposal, and there may be some limitations on that. There might be contractual agreements or construction renovation timelines for certain things. There are many things that may fit in the condition of a permit. So this rule provides information on suspension and revocation of permits as well if the facility fails to maintain a minimum grade of 70%, or a C, which 70 would be the lowest, or an imminent health hazard is observed. And if a permit is revoked or suspended, a reevaluation is needed to determine compliance. And if the permit is revoked, the reevaluation must occur within 15 days after a request has been made from the camp operator or the responsible person. So 15 days is the time that's given for the inspector to go back out sometime within that 15 days to do a reevaluation. So let's take a closer look at the Advance Notification of Operation form. This form is available on our website, the Environmental Health website. And if we look closer at the top half, we see the type of camp, the dates submitted, the dates of operation, or maybe they'll attach a calendar, a schedule for you, but somehow we've got to have that information. And then demographical information for the camp. And then the bottom half, the bottom part, shows the type of water supply, type of wastewater system, the maximum capacity of the camp. This includes campers and staff, the date of the first operation with items for the camp management to verify prior to opening, water features provided by the camp if there are any, field sanitation information, and then the name and signature of the person submitting the form. Public display of the grade card, just like all of our other rules where we post a grade. This grade card is expected to be posted in a conspicuous place. The inspections of summer camps are made in accordance with this section at least once during the season, so once during their operation. And then that grade card, when an inspection is completed and the grade card is filled out, the REHS shall remove the existing grade card and destroy it, issue the new grade card, and post that new grade card in a place where it's readily observed by the public upon entering the facility. Now, the owner and the REHS can discuss where to put it, and they can agree on a place. That's the best way to do this, for both of you to agree on the place that's the most readily observed by the public when they come into the facility. And then that grade card must remain posted at that designated location all the time, and the owner or operator of the camp is responsible for keeping that grade card in that location. Inspections and re-inspections, Rule 1006. An unannounced re-inspection can be done within 15 calendar days from the date of the request to raise a letter grade. So a camp might get a B and want to try to improve their grade to an A, and then they can make that request, and it is up to the inspector to go back within 15 calendar days for an unannounced re-inspection. And when that request is made, the regulatory authority takes that request and decides, what day to make that unannounced re-inspection and does a full inspection of the facility. If the camp happens to be closed for those 15 calendar days following the request, the permit holder or responsible person shall inform the regulatory authority of when the camp will open, and then the regulatory authority shall make an unannounced inspection within 15 calendar days of when the camp opens. So you do have to be mindful of their operating time, because camps sometimes are closed, for a few days during the season, or they may have a week where they don't have anyone there. So you do have to find out when they are actually active to start your 15 calendar day time. Grading, Rule 1008. We have a scoring system that you are probably familiar with from all the other establishments that we grade. So we've got the A, B, and C broken down on the slide, and the revocation of the permit if the grade drops below a 70. Rule 1088 is a useful rule citation because this rule provides the requirements for the scoring system, and it really serves as the marking instructions for the inspection form. It gives you information on how to mark the inspection report and how to assess points for violations observed during the inspection. So that rule is worth reading in more detail on your own time. So let's discuss the inspection form. We are going to get into a breakdown of every item and talk about what each item relates to. But let's just look closer. The top half of the inspection report, we've got demographical information and details for inspections and re-inspections. We've got water supply information, wastewater supply or wastewater system type, the season of the camp, the number of campers and employees, and then the inspection items for camp premises with total deductions for the top section. So you've got an actual summary of deductions here in this top half. So this is the camp premises. Your score is up in the top right corner. There's the water supply and wastewater, and there's our items that are total for the camp premises. Let's look at the bottom. So the bottom half specifically deals with the camp food service kitchen. We've got total deductions there in the bottom for the camp food service kitchen and total deductions with the inclusion of the camp premises deductions with this food service kitchen deductions to get your total for the whole form. So you see that in the bottom. And a little bit closer look at the camp food service kitchen section. We have rule citations up at the top, 1017 A through E. And this brings it out a little closer for us, a little bit bigger, so you can actually see items 1 through 6 on the inspection form. And we've got rule numbers from the 1000 rules and the 2600 rules. So we've got 2 rule citations because this is food service. This is the camp food service kitchen area. So we've got to look at our 1000 rules and the 2600 rules as they apply to these different items. Notice that you are asked to mark whether this is in, out, not applicable, or not observed. We are looking at the item number, and then we are looking at the in, out, NA, or NO, and then we have the actual item that's going to be evaluated. And is it going to be out with what point deductions? Is there a correction during the inspection? Is it a repeat violation? All of these things are to be notated on this form. Now, before you begin the inspection, just like other inspections that we talk about for preparing for those inspections, we want you to review the file, know some history on this facility prior to the inspection. And there's some basic equipment that you will need, and you'll see the list here. But thinking about the review of the file, we want to be aware if we are looking at an on-site wastewater system or municipal sewer. Are we looking at a well that serves any part of this camp, or is everything on a municipal water supply? We want to see what was noted on previous inspection reports so that we have an idea of what has been a problem and have there been any complaints or issues reported about the facility. Then your equipment, just some basics, your thermometer, alcohol swabs, a flashlight, wearing a hair restraint if you are going to be doing food service and not wearing, food service inspection and not wearing jewelry on your hands or wrists. Inspection form and your comment addendum or your computer, whatever you use to capture your inspection documentation. And we always say have paper as a backup just in case, and always have a copy of the rules so that you can refer to them and make sure you are looking at the right information for the item number that you're observing. You might want to take sunscreen if you're going to be outside walking and evaluating the outside areas of a big camp facility. You might need comfortable shoes. You might need insect repellent if there's lots of outdoor areas, or just depending on what area you're in and what time of year it is, there could be more biting insects that are annoying and You might want to prepare by having that handy as well. Your inspection should include a complete survey of the camp property, so you need to know the whole property. This is number 1 on the inspection form. The actual topography, drainage, and other site factors for the facilities and the activities of the camp. It's important that you know all about where those campers go, where they go on that area, on that property, and what they use, and what is your responsibility to evaluate. The site is to be free of actual or potential health hazards. Number 2 on the inspection form covers the water supply. Are we looking at a public water supply or an on-site supply like a well that needs to meet the 1700 rules? 1011A is the rule that you would look at for the water supply information. For summer camps that use a non-community water supply, a sample of water shall be collected once a year and submitted to the North Carolina State Lab of Public Health or another lab certified by the North Carolina State Lab so that they can perform bacteriological examinations. That is required every year. If you have a camp that is using a well, a non-community water supply, then they are supposed to have a sample taken each year that is sent off to be evaluated for bacteriological contamination. If the summer camp has been closed for more than 180 consecutive days during a 365-day period, then the regulatory authority shall collect these samples at least 30 days and not more than 60 days prior to the camp's scheduled opening date. So you've got to do a little figuring in there based on how long they've been closed and when they're trying to reopen. Failure of the regulatory authority to collect those samples at least 30 days prior to the camp's scheduled opening shall not impede the opening of the camp. Now, this is important. You are not going to be able to stop them from opening because you have not done that water sample, and that is in Rule 1011B. So it is expected for you to collect the sample, send it off at least once a year, but not following all the dates I just read off, the different time limitations, does not prohibit them from opening. Moving on, cross connections are not allowed, so we don't want a situation where potable, safe water is possibly going to be contaminated by non-potable, unsafe water. And there are many ways that can happen, and there is lots more discussion on this in our food module for CIT, for interns. And if you have questions about cross connections, those are good things to ask your leadership in your county or your regional specialist. But this is number 2 on the inspection form. More on water supply, Rule 1011. Water heating facilities are to be provided. There must be a way to get hot water. Hot and cold running water under pressure shall be provided to food preparation areas, bathing facilities, and any other area where water is required for cleaning. This includes your mop and your can cleaning areas, and that is found in 1011D. Number 3 on the inspection form is where this item is evaluated. Recreational waters, 1012 is the rule number. This item is not on the inspection form because a public swimming pool inspection is actually documented on a public swimming pool inspection form. So if a swimming pool is found to be operating without a permit, the issue is handled by the authorized REHS in the swimming pool program. So that will require communication within your county to see who you contact if you find a swimming pool operating that is not permitted. And then those swimming pool inspections are, of course, done under a different set of rules and a separate inspection form. Liquid waste, our wastewater disposal system concerns here in 1013. All sewage and other liquid waste shall be disposed of in a public sewer system or a properly operating sanitary sewage system approved by the department. A privy is what you see on this slide, and you might actually see these in some summer camps. There are some camps that have some rustic, primitive things there for their campers to see how things used to be done. So your bathroom outside in the privy. but either way, however there's sewage disposal, it's got to be approved. So whether it's a public sewer system or an on-site system that has a permit and has been checked by the local health department, number 4 on the inspection form is where this information is gathered, evaluated, and documented. Your on-site wastewater folks in the health department are the ones who actually would regulate the privy, the ability for them to use a privy like this or any kind of outdoor toilet. That's going to be something that your on-site wastewater folks will handle, and you will have to work together with them to see what's approved and what needs to be handled in a different manner. This is number 4 under your camp premises. And remember that we're still on the top part of the inspection form, so we're talking about the camp premises right now. Toilet, hand washing, laundry, and bathing facilities, Rule 1014. All summer camps shall be provided with toilet, hand washing, and bathing facilities, which are available for use by employees and campers during all hours the camp is open. Toilets for campers have to be located so the campers do not pass through a camp food service kitchen to get to the toilet rooms. And then there are some requirements on the numbers. Toilet facilities shall be provided at a rate of not more than 25 campers and staff per toilet seat. And toilet facilities shall be provided within 500 feet of sleeping quarters and the camp kitchen facility. Urinals can actually be substituted, but for no more than 2/3 of the toilets. And then the toilet ratio and distance requirements do not apply to any structure used in the operation of a summer camp before the effective date of this rule. So the older camps, this is not going to apply to them. And this is in Rule 1014A. And it's number 10 on our inspection form. Hand washing facilities, we're still on number 10 on the inspection form. We want potable water, soap, individual towels, or a hand drying device that is approved. And then we also need to make sure that hand washing facilities are being provided at flush toilet facilities anywhere on the premises, and then camp kitchen facilities. So base camp shall have at least one sink that can be used for hand washing that's supplied with hot and cold running water through a mixing faucet with soap and individual towels or hand drying device. That is 1014B in the rules and number 10 on the inspection form. Bathing facilities, they must have hot and cold potable water. The bathing facilities are not required for day camps if there's no overnight stay. But where there's overnight stay, bathing facilities are required. All fixtures are to be kept clean and in good repair. This includes toilet seats, shower curtains, shower heads, towel racks, and sink faucets, and it's number 10 on the inspection report. Laundry areas, more in rule number 1014, but we've moved on to number 11 on the inspection form. Laundry areas and equipment, where provided, are to be kept clean and in good repair. And soiled laundry is to be handled and stored separately from clean laundry. So there's not verbiage in the rule about labeling carts or that kind of thing, but there has to be a way that it's identified so that you know they are handling and storing soiled laundry separately from clean. So there might be a variety of ways to make that happen, and you have to work with the operator of the camp to see if they're meeting the intention of the rule. Are they doing enough that you know that soiled laundry is stored and handled separately from clean laundry? And again, that's item number 11. Drinking water facilities, Rule 1015, number 12 on the inspection form. Water must be dispensed in a sanitary manner. We want to see drinking fountains that have the sanitary angle jet design, that they're clean and properly regulated. And then if you look at the picture on the slide, that shows you the actual angle jet of the water fountain. And there might be water dispensed in different manners in the camp areas throughout the premises. So you've got to evaluate that on a case-by-case basis. You want to check and see if the units are clean. Are they using some sort of dispenser with a spout that all the parts can come apart for cleaning. And then you want to just make sure that here in a water fountain like this, that they are keeping all parts of that clean. That is the camp responsibility, to prevent mouth contact with the faucet, and then to keep those parts of that fountain clean. And you can see that one is overshooting the basin a bit, so if they can turn the jet stream down, the water stream down a little bit, that would probably be good for that one. But number 12 on the inspection form is where this information is captured. Lodging facilities, Rule 1016. This is number 8 on the inspection form. Permanent sleeping quarters have to have cross ventilation. They need at least 30 inches between beds, with a minimum of 6 feet between the heads of sleepers, and at least one bed for every camper. They can only have single beds or double level bunk beds, so there's no triple bunks or getting beds that are closer together to try to stack them or make them hold more campers. Lodging facilities, whether the facilities are provided by the camp or by individual campers, are to be kept clean and in good repair. And you can actually see in this picture the beds have spacing between them, and in addition, the staff have strategically arranged shelving units between the heads of the campers as a barrier. They've kind of turned the shelving units so that they're making sure that the beds stay farther apart and they're at the heads where they expect the heads of the campers to be. And this is number 8 on the inspection form. Clean linen and soiled linen shall be stored and handled separately. We've mentioned this, and there are different ways that they can accomplish this. They can use hampers, laundry baskets, or other effective methods. This is something you will have to discuss with the camp operator, and this is number 9 on the inspection form. So let's take another quick look at the bottom half of the inspection form. We just finished the premises part of the inspection form, and now we are going to look at the camp food service kitchen. So this form looks a lot like the food establishment inspection form, and before you do the inspection of the camp kitchen, I would say in the office is a good time to review these forms and just familiarize yourself with the items on here. Most of the items, the headings are self-explanatory, and you would use the marking instructions that are listed under Rule 1008 if you need more information, because that's the rule that's going to help you navigate the actual marking of these items and how to do that correctly. So jumping into the food service facility, Rule 1017, summer camps that prepare or serve food for pay shall include at least one camp food service kitchen and a covered dining hall. A camp food service kitchen shall comply with the food code that's incorporated by reference at Rule 2650, amended by the Rules 2651 through 2658. And we'll talk about that on the next slide, I believe. But those are those 2600 rules for food establishments where we adopted the food code and we incorporated the food code information by reference. So remember, your food service facilities, we are looking for them to comply with the 2600 rules with a few exceptions. So here are some of the exceptions. Your TCS, or time temperature control for safety foods, can be held at 42 to 45 degrees. Now, normally we expect cold holding of TCS foods to be 41 or below. That's what's set forth in the food code. However, here's an exception. They can hold this food 42 to 45 degrees Fahrenheit in refrigeration equipment that is not capable of maintaining the food at 41 degrees Fahrenheit or less if the equipment is in place and in use in the camp food service kitchen on or before the effective date of this rule. On or before April 1st, 2026, the equipment is upgraded or replaced to maintain the food at a temperature of 41 degrees Fahrenheit or less. So we're looking at the upgrade of equipment. Or if the TCS food is date marked for a maximum of 4 days. So at this time we allow the date marking for 4 days instead of 7 in this instance. This is just the summer camp rules where they can actually use a 4-day date mark to get their allowance for having temperatures 42 to 45 degrees instead of 41 or below. So this is very similar to the process that was used when the food code was initially adopted, and we had food establishments that were struggling with equipment issues, and we did allow some date marking for 4 days to allow temperatures that were 42 to 45 and give them time to replace equipment. So that is the same thing that's going on here. Now, the provisions in the food code that require verification visits for food establishments do not apply to the summer camps. So there are not requirements for a verification visit for priority or priority foundation items being violated. More on exceptions. The lighting intensity that's set forth in Part 6.303.11 of the Food Code is not applicable here in summer camps. Nothing in these rules prohibits family style service, so family style food service may happen in camps and it's not prohibited. Non-commercial equipment is allowed except for warewashing equipment. So we have an allowance for the residential style equipment, and you will see that in some camp kitchens. But warewashing equipment must meet the 2600 rules and the North Carolina Food Code. A couple of more exceptions. When only single-service eating and drinking utensils are used, a sink with at least 2 compartments that meet the requirements set forth in Chapter 4 of the Food Code shall be acceptable as the camp food service warewashing sink. So that sink can be a 2-compartment sink. It does have to meet the 2600 rules, and it's allowable when single-service utensils are used. And then the Certified Food Protection Manager requirement is not applicable to summer camps. Rule 1017, more on the exceptions. We've got person in charge duties, and there's a part of that we are going to look at that they will need to be prepared to comply with as of April 1st, 2025. So they've got some time, but for now, the person in charge duties and the actual written or the employee health policy, whether it's written or understood through training and verbal explanation, and then the irreversible registering temperature indicator, so your holding thermometer, a way to measure temperatures in a hot water sanitizing dish machine, and vomiting and diarrhea event cleanup plan. So these exceptions have an exception. They are not required right now, but they are going to be effective beginning April 1st, 2025. After April 1st, 2026, all TCS food and camp food service kitchens shall be held in accordance with the provisions of Part 3-501 of the Food Code. This means that cold holding must be 41 or below, so that allowance for the 4-day date marking will go away. The 41-degree requirement for refrigeration for cold holding will stand in place as of April 1st, 2026. Camp food service kitchens shall be illuminated by natural or artificial means, so there will be that lighting requirement. And then contracted food service must be in compliance with food laws. So if a camp brings in food, if they contract with an outside person, outside company to bring in food, the responsibility for compliance with food service sanitation remains with that permit holder. So the permit holder, the camp operator, must confirm that all the food coming in from that outside person or that company complies with the requirements of Part 3-201.11 of the Food Code. So food services provided to the camp from a contracted or outside source still must be approved, must come from an approved source. This includes permitted caterers, operators that meet the requirements for reciprocity. So if you're dealing with a camp that's bringing food from another state, or other permitted food service operations that bring in food to the camp. So the permit holder retains the responsibility for the compliance with the food laws from those outside groups. Supplemental cooking rooms are allowed at summer camps, and they must comply with the standards that are set forth in Rule 2664, except the lighting intensity requirement in item 7 of that rule does not apply. So the lighting intensity and shielding requirement is what that is that does not apply. Your non-commercial utensils and equipment being allowed in the educational kitchens, that stands. There's provisions set forth in this section, and in field sanitation standards, there's information set forth there that tells us what has to be met in the educational kitchens, but it's non-commercial utensils and equipment that are allowed. And then lighting does have to be shielded in educational kitchens, food prep, and storage areas. Okay, handling ice. Ice has to be protected from contamination. Ice is a food, and it is to be handled, transported, stored, and dispensed to protect it from contamination. If block ice is used, the outer surfaces are to be thoroughly rinsed before it is crushed. Any ice crushers or buckets or containers or scoops, so we're talking about equipment and utensils, that is to be kept clean and in good repair. They are to be stored and handled in a sanitary manner. Facilities for the making and storage of ice shall be kept clean and in good repair, and they are to be located to be protected from the elements, from splash, drip, dust, vermin, and any other contamination, and from use by unauthorized personnel. So we want to be concerned about who has access to the ice and how is it being protected from the elements. This is number 18 under camp premises on your inspection form. So be aware we've jumped back now to camp premises on the inspection form to talk about the ice handling. All of the camp buildings are to be of sound construction, comply with the North Carolina Building Code, shall be kept clean and in good repair, and then there are some specifics about floors, walls, and ceilings. So let's look at floors. They are to be easily cleanable, kept clean, in good repair, non-absorbent where required. So floors that are in the rooms for handling, storage, and preparation of food, where utensils are washed, walk-in refrigerators, dressing or locker rooms, laundry rooms, and toilet rooms are to be non-absorbent. We are looking for concrete, terrazzo, tile, durable grades of linoleum, or something equal to that, provided that the floors in your non-refrigerated dry areas, just a mention that they do not have to be non-absorbent. The non-refrigerated dry storage areas do not have to be non-absorbent. But where non-absorbent floors are required, they have options of what to put there, but it does have to be non-absorbent in those places that we listed. Where rooms that have water that's routinely discharged to the floor, or if the floors are subjected to flooding type cleaning, those floors must be of concrete, terrazzo, tile, or equal, and they've got to have a slope on them to the drain and have floor drains to get rid of that water as it's flooding the floor for cleaning. And this is number 6 under your camp premises on the inspection form. Walls are to be kept clean and in good repair. All the walls and ceilings in rooms where food is stored, prepared, where utensils or equipment are washed, dressing or locker rooms, toilet rooms, and bathrooms, they are to be easily cleanable and light colored. And the walls are to have washable surface, so I want them to be easily cleaned to the highest level reached by splash or spray, depending on what room it is. So there's a judgment call to be made there, but the expectation is that washable surfaces will be provided to the highest level where splash or spray might happen on the walls. And that is number 6 on your camp premises inspection form, that part of the inspection form. Lighting and ventilation. Number 7 on the camp premises inspection form, or the part of the inspection form that's the camp premises, sorry. All rooms and areas shall be well lighted and ventilated by natural or artificial means, so they have an option of natural or artificial light and ventilation. This has to be effective under actual use or real life conditions. Lighting fixtures and ventilation equipment shall be kept clean and in good repair. The ventilation systems are to comply with the North Carolina Building Code, and vents to the outside air shall discharge in such a manner as not to create a nuisance. Now, Deciding on a nuisance will require you doing some discussion, probably with supervisors, health director. You might not be able to determine that something is a nuisance just on your own, and you would probably need your health director to help really declare that it's a nuisance. Solid waste containing food scraps and other decomposable materials shall, prior to disposal, be kept in leak-proof, non-absorbent containers. You see the picture of standard garbage cans, and they are to be kept covered with tight-fitting lids when they're filled or stored or not in continuous use. And then, if they are stored outside these garbage cans, there's to be a storage rack elevated above the ground so that the garbage cans will not sit directly on the ground. And that is Rule 1025A. All dry rubbish is to be stored in an approved manner, and that simply means containers, rooms, designated area. These are approved places for your dry rubbish, scrap paper, cardboard, that kind of thing. And this is number 5 under the camp premises part of the form. Also, under number 5 on the premises part of the form, adequate storage areas for solid waste. So accumulation of solid waste and where it's stored, and then container cleaning facilities, keeping the area clean, and actually disposing of the solid waste frequently and in an approved manner. So you don't want solid waste pouring out of the dumpsters or out of the garbage containers and not being disposed of frequently enough. There's supposed to be adequate space, whether it's rooms, enclosures, designated areas, dumpsters, should be adequate for the solid waste that accumulates. And then a container cleaning facility will have a mixing faucet with hose threads, and there's to be room enough for these containers to be thoroughly cleaned after emptying or whenever waste is removed. All solid waste has to be disposed of, as I said earlier, frequently enough to not accumulate and spill over and cause a nuisance or a pest breeding or harborage area. And the department has to determine what that manner is sometimes, like if it's frequently enough, is it large enough for what trash that camp produces. Vermin control, Rule 1026, and this is number 14 on the inspection form. Effective measures shall be taken to keep flies, rodents, and other vermin out of the food service areas and permanent sleeping quarters, and to prevent their breeding or presence on the premises. Unless flies or other flying insects are absent from the immediate vicinity of the camp, all openings to the outer air of food service areas and sleeping quarters shall be effectively protected against the entrance of the insects, and those protection methods can be self-closing doors, closed windows, 16-inch mesh or finer screening, or air currents, air fans, air currents, something similar, or some other effective means to prevent these insects from getting into your food service areas and sleeping quarters. And again, that's number 14 on the premises part of the form. Pesticides, vermin control, Rule 1026 covers pesticides and the storage and use of them. So only pesticides that have been approved for a specific use and properly registered with the Environmental Protection Agency and with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture in accordance with the Federal Environmental Pesticide Control Act and the North Carolina Pesticide Law. These are the pesticides that can be used. They are to be used for their intended use and as directed on their label, and handled and stored as directed on the label to avoid health hazards. So that's a lot of information about the requirements on a pesticide, and the simple way to say that is they have to be approved and they are to be used as directed from the manufacturer. So number 13 on the inspection form covers that. And then just the premises in general being under control of the camp management is expected to be kept neat, clean, and free of litter. And that is number 15 on the inspection form. Animals. No live birds or animals shall be permitted in the kitchen or dining areas. This is number 16 under camp premises. And then horse stables is covered, and if provided, they are to be in a location removed from the main recreation center of activity to minimize the potential odor and nuisance problems. Because all manure shall be stored, removed, or disposed of in such a manner to minimize the breeding of flies. I think it was a quote from the movie Forrest Gump that says, it happens, manure does happen. In a horse stable, there could be a lot of it. There could be a pretty significant odor, nuisance, fly breeding, and it has to be located away from this main recreation center of activity where the campers' main activities are going on. So again, some judgment call going on here. If you are dealing with a camp that has stables, you've got to evaluate how far away the stables are from the main activity, the center of activity for the camp. Are they able to remove manure, get rid of it in an approved manner, and minimize the breeding of flies and the odor? This is number 14 on the inspection form. Some miscellaneous items. There's always going to be a storage building, a shed, something like that. There could be fuel, chemicals. There could be some things that are explosive, other equipment. There's going to be an old lawnmower or a weed eater or something in that shed. And these items are to be handled and stored to minimize health hazards. So that's kind of a catch-all for the storage that you might find in the outdoor areas there. That's number 13 on the inspection form. And it doesn't have to be outdoor. There could be some just general miscellaneous storage inside buildings on the camp premises, and you just want to evaluate them for handling and storing those things to minimize health hazards. And then where there are railings, fences, and enclosures, they are to be kept in good repair. That's number 15 on the inspection report. Appeals. An operator always has the right to appeal if they disagree with an REHS's interpretation and enforcement of the rules. Now, sometimes you can resolve issues like this just through a good discussion, but sometimes it takes an informal review involving the supervisor for environmental health, and sometimes a formal review has to be sought. And in that case, the regional specialist will get involved, and appeals are handled by the North Carolina Office of Administrative Hearings. You might hear some of us refer to that as the NCOAH, but that's the Office of Administrative Hearings. This is not found on your inspection report, but it is your responsibility to give operators the opportunity to appeal. And if there's discussion enough that they disagree with something and they might want to appeal, you are supposed to give them that information so that they know how to go about making that appeal. This is the end of this presentation. If you have any questions about this presentation, please contact your regional specialist.